So as Charles says, for us, it's really, really important to gather perspective, to gather questions. So we have think of the day really as an opportunity for you to ask and to interact with the audience. So what I'm going to do here is explain a little bit how the format will be, introduce the first panel, and please, while you're listening to everybody presenting, collect questions. We will have Alejandra Bosch here, so you can write your question. Alejandra will be there. She will take it and she will make it. Okay, so we are going to have this morning two panels. We have two keynotes. The first was Charles, with his presentation of the overall framework of what landscape urbanism in the Americas aims to achieve. Then we'll have this first panel. Then we'll have a second panel, and then we'll have Alfredo Ramirez keynote at the end. So for now, for this panel, I invite all the panelists to come to the stage. We are very happy to have today first Romy Hecht. Romy Hecht is an assistant professor in history and theory of landscape architecture here at Universidad Católica. Romy, if you are there. Great. Then we also have Janet Sordi. Janet Sordi is an Italian architect that did her PhD in Italy and then spent some time with Charles working at the GSD. She wrote Beyond Urbanism, which is a book that in a way reassembles the epic of landscape urbanism, so we're very interested in listening what she has to say. Then we also have Claudia Illanes and Andrew Harris from Harris Illanes Architects. And then we will have also, which had been working with us organizing the symposium, and for that, thank you, Pedro Enriquez de Cristo and Caroline Shannon from D Plus Studio, Design with Purpose, that Charles already gave a bit of a brief of what their work is about. So please join me in welcoming everybody today.
I just want to begin by acknowledging to all the people, institutions, and sponsors involved in the organization of this symposium. I'm very honored to be part of this intensive morning array of presentations, and of course of this opportunity to share with you a passion for the field of landscape studies. So thanks to all of you for being here today. We have students in the audience, and because of that, I will use one of my 11 minutes to address Charles's position in the field since the publication of the Landscape Urbanism Reader, which helped to develop a conversation about the logic of the landscape project and the logic of the urban processes, and about the necessary bridges we need to outline between them in order to reposition landscape as fundamentally urban on its very nature. And let me say, this is not a minor path for a region where landscape has been usually labeled and received as a green patch for the urban condition. So in order to contribute to such a dialogue, I have conducted my own research efforts towards the construction of a comprehensive history of landscape projects in Chile, particularly in Santiago. My goal is to unveil dynamic relationships between material practices, political views, and economic forces involved in their creation, a task that, in my opinion, remains largely undone. And knowing that this might be a life project, my approach has been to work with relatively well-defined smaller pieces and most often single events. So what I'm going to do next is to briefly unravel a decisive decade for a 1,562-acre prominent Andean spur standing out like a keel to the northeast of Santiago Center, which offers me an opportunity to explore the idea of landscape as an entity where human expectations, design propositions, and socio-cultural processes intersect. Between 1916 and 1927, the Cerro San Cristóbal emerged as a rocky topography, large part for the country. And I'm using here a contemporary term coined, as you might know, by Cherniak, Hargraves et al., to refer to an extensive design landscape providing a new scale, shape, and a sense of collective identity that could change the face and impart the structure of the city. During this period, journalist Alberto Maquena Subercaseaux spontaneously became the hill's steward when developing an outspoken critique of its abandonment and of the informal urbanization pressing against its edges. Obsessed with the possibility to transform this unit of reddish-brown volcanic rocks into a social catalyst for Santiago, Maquena Subercaseaux challenged cultural conditions, economic circumstances, and political decisions in order to shape a national consciousness about the value of having out-of-doors life amid the fabric of cities. To achieve its goal, Maquena Subercaseaux deployed 3 plans for the San Cristóbal, each of them related to his public role at the time. First, as president and spokesman of the Junta de Reforma Municipal de Santiago, in 1916 he collaborated with architect Alberto Cabezón in the drawing of a promotional postcard depicting a transformation strategy that considered the construction of institutional buildings in the hills quarries, remediating the site for new public uses. As such, the San Cristóbal emerged as a recipient for urban folie, with a widespread range of cultural references. There was a pavilion Romanesque format, bridges in the Roman taste, and Beaux-Arts and neoclassic structures. As a whole, they were extravagant, but clearly democratic in their ambition. While acting as an eye-catcher, a retreat, or a viewpoint, these madly expensive devices, recognizing and healing the old quarries, would provide a relationship of meaning and identity between the project's scale and materials, through which visitors could understand and respond to the site. Secondly, as scout leader, from 1917 on, Maquena Subercaseaux promoted hiking and Arbor Day celebrations as nature study activities, where Boy Scouts would plant the first pines, first eucalyptuses, oaks, and plane trees. These actions followed a sentiment broadly spread at the time, and I quote, "Children were from the city, but not at home in it," end of the quote. Consequently, field excursions chronicled that man, even under the format of a Boy Scout, was the force that shaped his surroundings. Then, in order to exercise his stewardship well, he needed to generate local knowledge with which to understand the material conditions and likely consequences of his interventions in the landscape. In this context, Maquena Subercaseaux's promotion of the San Cristóbal as an urban Arcadia set forth the idea of landscape as something that is visibly man-made and cultured, hence not a manufactured and spoiled stage featuring green grasses, trees, and bushes. Finally, in 1921, as appointed intendente or governor for the city, he reinvented the site as a public venue by promoting the plan of paysagist and parks director of Buenos Aires, Carlos Taiz. Particularly relevant is the fact that Thais's original drawing is entitled Project of Transformation, numerous facilities, plantations, etc., etc. Among the similar equipment included, we have, among others, small squares, unassigned park concessions, areas for the use of international collectivities, soccer fields, playgrounds, belvederes, and nurseries. Thais's drawing allows me to demonstrate that this is the only moment in time where the San Cristobal was conceived as an infrastructural project where natural elements are treated as an artificial construct. And more importantly, the hill was under the scope of one authority and one designer who envisioned the park as an emblem of Santiago's metropolitan condition, echoing, on one hand, Haussmann's urban revitalization efforts for Paris, and on the other, a French legacy of transformation of derelict sites. Consider, for example, Vieux-Chaumont, which, by the end of the 19th century, was the home of desolate quarries, drifters, and felons, just like the San Cristobal. In the span of 6 years, from conception to execution, under Haussmann's control and Enfant management, the homonymous park emerged with its dramatic topography, profuse vegetation, and characteristic water feature, securing an intensive public use that persists to this day. And let me highlight that 6 years was the same period of time that Maquena Subercaseaux remained in office. Nevertheless, when he left in 1927, his imaginative enterprise to turn the hill into an open, large-scale entity filled with forests, promenades, and innumerable types of social spaces for a broad range of people remained largely undone. His actions, however, emboldened a set of scattered operations turning the hill into a forest patchwork, displaying a menagerie of independent constructions. This process remains active, and in fact, since 2015, there are 8 ongoing projects under development by 8 different teams that will insert 28 new devices in the hill from road infrastructure to open balconies and ranging from 1 to 17,000 square meters. In that sense, the strategy for organizing the San Cristobal through the generation of forms coming from it, it's particularly difficult for a site that lacks a latent ecological structure or traces of past uses accumulated over time. And at the same time, to preserve isolated fragments of historical moments is no more than a negation of the same history that they are trying to rebuild. The site becomes an outdoor stage, the materials props, and the scale that of an urban monument, or in J.B. Jackson's words, those scenes of unreality, places where we can briefly relive the golden age and be purged of historical guilt, end of quote. Although unsuccessful, Maquena Subercaseaux set forth a narrative of the hill as an urban unit of influence and control, and as a lens through which one can understand the evolution of Santiago's landscape, a platform for constructing a national identity, a medium to generate new forms of engagement with the surrounding environment, and a laboratory for the practice of foreign ideas. More importantly, Maquena Subercaseaux set forth a debate still unresolved, but particularly relevant for our region. If design is a negotiation between past and future projections for a site, then landscape consistency depends on an organizational system lending a structure to a site subject to cross-cultural exchanges, financial constraints, and populist decisions over a long span of history. So let's see how this works at the end. Thank you very much.